Okay, I think we're ready to begin the afternoon portion. Oh, everyone got very quiet. Thank you. What a productive morning that we've had. And I've heard from our colleagues up here that they've really gotten a lot of useful information in the morning. And we're excited to continue the discussion into our topic on treatment approaches and your perspectives on that. As I mentioned, this topic is now delving into how you approach the management of psoriasis day to day, including the treatments that you're on, with a particular focus on what are they addressing well, what they're not addressing well, what their downsides are. And then we'll get into things about looking for an ideal treatment. So we're going to ask a question later today about if you could have one benefit, a couple benefits that are most meaningful you out of a treatment that a treatment could address, what would that be? We'll have a polling question to get that kicked off. And then we'll wrap it up by looking at the decision-making process that you go through, and it sounds like you have to go through quite often to determine whether a treatment is the right treatment for you, whether you want to embark upon a new treatment. So we'll get into that as well. But first we have some panel discussants to kick it off, just like we did. The first panel was wonderful at doing that. Really, I think, set the stage nicely for us to build on in the in this facilitated discussion. So we're asking the panel here, Caleb, Sarah, Amy, Pashia, and John, to do the same thing. So we'll start with Caleb, and we'll just go through.
Hi everyone, my name is Caleb Sexton. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for being awesome and for letting us have this be here today. But a second point too, I think the gentleman who had the psoriatic arthritis who left, I have never been in a room with folks like me, like you guys before, and had this opportunity. And I'd like to say that I think the most strongest group of people I've ever met in my life is sitting in those chairs, all right there. So thank you so much for what you're doing, and thank you guys so much for letting us have the chance to talk. I was first diagnosed in 2007. I was about 19, 20, going into my second year of college. Small town Mississippi at the time, and I was very lucky, very fortunate enough to find a dermatologist who immediately picked it out. I'd never really had any symptoms of psoriasis prior, and it came on like a light switch where I went from 0 to 85% coverage in about 3 months. And of course, you know, talking about the treatments, I was very lucky that basically he decided to pull all the bags of the trick. I was put on the systemic chemo drugs, biologics, UV therapy, steroids, every kit and caboodle you could imagine all at the same time. And of course, you know, the kind of the side effects of that, right, are pretty intense. A lot of sickness, a lot of missed days of school, kind of debilitating. But ultimately, it took about 2 years for that to get clear. And ever since then, I was on Raptiva, which got pulled from the market. I've been pretty consistent on the biologics and steroids. Of course, I've had the opportunity to now cycle through, I guess, about 3, 4 of them. So there have been changes. From my experience, my journey has been that the biologics have really helped. You know, it's really cleared me up for at least 70% of the time. I've had flare-ups here and there, but they've really kept the skin challenges, the problems at bay. It never stops itch. It never stops the cracking or the bleeding. You know, all of the things that were talked about earlier. But for me, it's really been a huge benefit and a huge value add to go through and at least relatively be able to lead a normal life. You know, I would like to say that I think that one of the biggest problems has been the downsides. You know, when we talk about the side effects and the fear and what that could mean, but also to the excessive costs and trying to figure that out. I know I single-handedly bankrupted my family in college, my mom and them trying to help pay for my health care. Since then, you know, we've gotten out of that, and that's been good. But I knew going forward that, you know, you kind of have two options with this disease. One, you get to the point of accepting that it's until we figure out a cure, that there's never anything that's going to disappear. You kind of have to accept it, and you either let the disease control you or you control it as best you can. Use it as a way to become an advocate, to reach out and be a champion. So that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. Before Sarah gets on, I've gotten the link from Pujita that I am supposed to mention a few things before, and I apologize to interrupt this to mention these things. One is that we put the public comment sheet back out there. We had a lot of patients sign up for public comment. If you feel that what your comment would have been has been expressed through our dialogue today, we would encourage you to consider whether you still want to make a public comment. If not, it might let some of the others who don't have as much of a chance to speak today give a public comment. So we would then say you could go back out and look to see if there's some names crossed off, if we could add a few more names to the list. It doesn't mean that we can get to everyone. We will try our best. Please be appreciative of that and respectful of it. If you don't get to do the public comment today, if you didn't make the list, the docket is there. So I just wanted to make that point. And also the evaluation forms, I had mentioned that we would be handing them out. There are so many of you here today. We're going to leave them in the back. Please fill them out. It's very important to us. And finally, we had one of our colleagues came up and mentioned skin tightness, that we didn't really cover that today. So we might not get to that in the course of the discussion, but so this is a homework assignment for those of you that indicated skin tightness was one of your top 3 symptoms. If you could just jot a little something and submit it. The National Psoriasis Foundation has a way, has something easy on their website to do that. Just send us what that's like and why you consider that to be most important, because we didn't cover it. With that, I am sorry, Sarah, to interrupt that, and thank you, Caleb. And now we'll move on to Sarah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Sarah Truman. I was diagnosed with psoriasis about 20-something years ago when I was 18, and psoriatic arthritis about 12 years ago. But it's very prevalent in my family. My mother, my grandmother, my great-grandfather, a couple of cousins, and a couple of aunts also have it. So it's very, very prevalent in my family. So it's a very complex disease. As most of us know, it's not just psoriasis. For me, I also have some comorbidities as well. I'm also, as I mentioned, diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. I have fibromyalgia due to my disease. I also have hepatitis, so my disease has attacked my liver. I'm having problems with my eyes. I have hypothyroid. I have asthma. I have to take allergy pills every day because when I stress out now, I break out in welts. That's something new for me. I have migraines. I have numerous side effects from the medications I take, insomnia because of the pain for me. I also live with chronic fatigue, chronic pain. So what does that mean? So for me, a typical day on my medications is a pill about a half hour before breakfast, 9 pills with breakfast, 2 with lunch, 6 or 7 with dinner, checking into a hospital once a month for 4 hours or so to get my biologic. And that's a good day. If I'm having bad days, so flares, more pain, more problems, more headaches, I have to take extra medications for that. So it's a constant balance for me. I feel like I'm tied to my pill box all the time. And I pack them everywhere. So that's, my purse is full of them, my backpack at work. It's a very much a pain, and I'm young to have to deal with that. And it's changed quite a bit over time. I started with the weaker drugs, the things that were the least impactful to my immune system and that had the least side effects, and moved up the scale. And I did that so I didn't have to deal with the least amount of side effects, and the drugs that would the drugs that would work the best for me without moving into some of those that had more powerful side effects. Unfortunately, none of those worked for me. So I'm now getting ready to start my 4th biologic. I also become immune to most of them after about 12 or 18 months, so they don't work for me. I've done things like split the Enbrel up and take it, I think twice a week. For the Remicade, I started at 8 weeks, moved to 6 weeks. I'm on 4 weeks now. They've upped the doses as much as they can get. The Remicade's only working for 2 weeks, and I stretched that as long as I possibly could because I know there's only a finite amount of choices that I have for biologics at this time. The worst thing about all the medication changes has been like going through the loading doses. Sometimes you have to go through 8 or 12 weeks of loading doses, and then you have to wait another 8 or 12 weeks to see if they work. So switching all these medications sometimes to find out if anything works, sometimes you're at 5 or 6 months. And then you have to try something else again, and then try something else. And it's very frustrating to go through, where your skin's broke out. I guess I didn't say that to begin with. When I had my initial onset, I was completely covered, probably more than 90% of my body. My hair fell out. It was all over my face, my body, my genitals. It was everywhere. It was horrible. I didn't want to leave my house. I had to seek treatment for depression. I didn't want to leave my house. It was the worst thing I ever went through. The biologics have helped more than anything. I'm very thankful to have them. I wish we had more than those that are on the market to choose from. The other thing that has helped, I've been through the exercise, meditation, and diet. Meditation doesn't do much for me. Exercise, it's very hard to exercise when you're so tired that you can't even want to get out of bed. It's all you can do to go to work. Your energy level is like a bank account, and sleeping is like your deposits. So you have to really plan. So for instance, I knew I was coming here this week. I was on Capitol Hill yesterday. I'm here today. I have a couple things to do tomorrow. I had to plan for that, and for the last week, I really had to not do anything and just do nothing but go to work and come home and sleep and rest for that, knowing that I had to save all my energy for these couple of days. And that's how I live my life, and it's very frustrating to do that. And, as I said, my body becomes immune to things, so that's also very frustrating. The one thing that I did notice in diet is I had to quit drinking all alcohol, and that made a really big difference for me. Beer and whiskey and the hard alcohol, those types of things are the very worst. Wine is the least impactful, I guess. It can take me 2 hours to get out of bed if I have any type of alcohol in the mornings, and it also is a big trigger for my skin and for the arthritis. So not to mention the mix with the medications isn't good, but it really makes a big difference for me. As far as the downsides for me, obviously other than being tied to the pill bottle, just to take the Remicade, for instance, I have to take one afternoon off every 4 weeks and spend about 3 or 4 hours in the hospital to get my infusion. The treatment itself takes about 2.5 hours. However, the infusion clinic cannot order my bag until I'm on site because of the cost of the medication and the chance that something might happen between me calling and saying I'm going to show up and me actually being there. So sometimes it can take an hour and a half for the pharmacy to on the hill to mix my bag and bring it to the infusion clinic. So I'm up there, I'm waiting, I had to take the day off of work, they bring it to me, and then I'm there for another 2.5 hours. I schedule my infusions on Fridays on purpose because of the fatigue. I'm tired anyway, but to actually receive the Remicade really wears me out. I fall asleep during my infusions every time, and I sleep through the whole weekend until Monday when I'm ready to go to work. So that's really a downside for me. It's also really hard on my personal life. I have 3 children and a grandson. It's hard to spend time with them. It's hard to spend time with my husband when he's, ready to go on the weekends and I have to stay in bed. So that's been very frustrating and very hard. Some of the things I would look for in an ideal situation would be, I don't want something that lowers my whole immune system. We treat it like we treat cancer. It's, radiation and chemotherapy treat the whole body instead of the target, and we're doing the same thing with this disease. We lower the entire immune system instead of just treating the thing that's wrong. And that's very frustrating to me. I also want something that puts me in 100% remission. No matter what, I have not been able to get rid of the scalp and the face, and that's very hard. I manage a very large department for a big global corporation. I deal with a lot of executives, and I don't like to wear makeup. Makeup is an irritant for me. Anything I put on the skin is, and I constantly have like red spots on my forehead or my face or my scalp, and it's very hard to deal with that. So no matter all the biologics I've taken, it doesn't get rid of the itch, and it doesn't get rid of the burning.
Any final comments, Sarah? Any to
Wrap me up? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay. Something that would be more meaningful, I guess, is less side effects, potential for the liver, and mouth sores and the immune system. Some other factors to take into account when selecting treatment is I always weigh the side effects and are they worth how I am? And so how many bad days am I going to get in a month versus how many good days? And my bad days would be the flares or the pain versus how many days am I going to feel well? And that's ultimately what I have to choose to go with. And as far as the information on the potential benefits of these treatment factors make my decision is, another thing is how much time goes into the administration of the medication and how much time it takes me to get the medication. And part of that is how much it helps my joint pain because I have the psoriatic arthritis as well. Another thing I have to take into consideration, and I think Christina touched on this lightly when she talked about having children, is one of my sons is very adamant about adopting children because he does not want to have any to pass this on to his children because of what he's watched me go through. And that's very heartbreaking as a parent to hear that he has made that decision and will not change it because he absolutely does not want to have a child and have them go through anything I've gone through because it means that much to him and has hurt him so badly to have to watch me. So that's very painful to know. And things that I do to assess the treatments versus the side effects, I guess. I do have my blood test done every 4 weeks. I see a liver specialist. I have ultrasounds on my kidneys, my heart, my liver. I have liver biopsies done. And I do have confirmed liver damage, although that was from the disease, not the medication. I have kidney infections every year that I have to deal with as a fact of life. I guess in wrapping up, I really do not want to pass this down my genetic line, and I would like to see something that would, remove that somehow. I don't know how to do that. And I really want to see an autoimmune suppressant that doesn't suppress everything in my whole body.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you. Now we have Amy.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Vasquez. I'm married, 45 years old, and I have 1 child. I was diagnosed with psoriasis at the age of 8. At that time, which was in the 70s, I was given ointments and coal tar baths, which did nothing for the psoriasis that I have. I have severe plaque psoriasis, and it covers about 90% of my body. There was nothing that I did not try. Ointments, lotions, topicals, phototherapy, summers at the beach, baking in the sun, diets, herbs, acupuncture, you name it, I've done it. I gave up hope because the treatments were always the same, until my dermatologist suggested I try biologics. I decided to give biologics a try, and it was like anything else. After a while, they stopped working. I was on one biologic, and it only worked for about 3 months. And while on another biologic, it only lasted for about 2 years. My psoriasis would start to come back. I would be about 60 to 80% covered by the time they stopped working. I am now on Stelara and prescribed topical ointments. I also try to eat healthy and exercise. Right now, my regimen is working great. I no longer itch as much, no more scales, no more redness. I still have some stubborn spots. My condition is getting better. I go to the dermatologist's office to get the shot and blood work, which I'm not too crazy about. I get frustrated because I have to take time off from work to go to the doctor's office to get the shot. And then again, who wants to get stuck with a needle to get their blood drawn? I would like something long-term, a long-term medication that would not lose its effectiveness. I would also like a medication where I wouldn't have to go to the doctor's office to get blood work. A medication with no scary side effects. Ideally, a medication that could give me total clearance. When I look at a medication, I look at how effective it will be. Then I look at the side effects that the medication can potentially give me. And finally, I look at the ease of taking the medication. For example, is it every 2 weeks or is it every 12 weeks? I don't mind the headaches, the nausea, the injection site pain. All of that is nothing compared to having clear skin. I think about the serious side effects every day. That's always on my mind. But I can't live a single day knowing that there is some type of relief out there and that I'm too scared to at least give it a try. Clearance and relief from this dreadful disease is most important for me because then I can live a normal life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. Now we have Pashia.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pashia Gardner. I'm 36 years old, a branding consultant, a wife, and a mother of 5 children. I was diagnosed with psoriasis at age 23. My psoriasis is located on my hands and feet, the hardest areas to clear according to my dermatologist. I'm currently using Methotrexate and Humira to help treat my symptoms. When I first was diagnosed, I was strictly using topical steroid ointments because my psoriasis only affected a quarter of my left palm. But within 3 years, it spread to my right palm and both the soles of my feet, in turn affecting my fingernails and toenails significantly. At that time, steroid topicals were not working to address these areas because it was too widespread. After consulting with my dermatologist, I shifted to exclusively using Enbrel. After 3 months on Enbrel with no positive results, my doctor added UV therapy to the regimen. This combination worked. My skin cleared up and my nails grew back normally. Every change in medication has been due to a lack of response to the therapy. The best results were initially observed with the Enbrel UV therapy combination, but this was abandoned during my 3rd and 4th pregnancies between 2008 and 2011. Not because of adverse effects of the treatment, but because my psoriasis cleared up significantly during my pregnancies. However, this combination was retried without success in 2012. Right now, my psoriasis is uncontrolled with my current combination drug treatment. This regimen hasn't helped with clearing my skin or with the inflammation. According to published studies, this combination therapy showed great results in alleviating symptoms, but I haven't seen any changes in my condition thus far. I have been on this regimen for 4 months with no change. My dermatologist recently recommended a different biologic, and I am in the process of getting it approved through my insurance company. The downside of my current treatment is the monthly blood draws to check liver function and the cost associated with both the medication and the blood tests. Psychologically, it affects me because I'm always anticipating adverse side effects that may be irreversible. I believe the ideal treatment for me is something that completely clears my skin and restores my fingernails and toenails. The factors that I take into account when making my decision about a course of treatment include the response rate of others to the medication, whether it's a biologic or chemical drug, side effects of the drug, doctor's recommendation, and most importantly, the cost associated with the medication. When it comes to weighing the potential benefits versus the less common but serious risks associated with the treatments, I usually take into account the history of how well other patients responded to the treatment and the success rate of the medication. Quality of life comes into play when making the decision to engage in a treatment with the less common but serious risks, because now I'm dealing with other possible health issues. Unless a treatment is prescribed to be long-term, I'm not opposed to trying it on a short-term basis to see how my body responds to it. If my psoriasis responds favorably to the treatment and it's something I should consider sticking with indefinitely to clear up my psoriasis, then I need to reevaluate at that time the benefits and the risks of a long-term regimen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pashia. And we have John.
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is John Early. I am 62 years old, and I am an architect from Arlington, Texas, and the proud dad of a newly married daughter. Thanks to the FDA for providing this venue and inviting us to this gathering. I've had plaque psoriasis since the early 80s. In that time, I have been through about every treatment available. In 1983, I moved to Texas from Maryland and found an excellent dermatologist who guided me through treatments from creams to light treatments to drugs, and finally to what I am on now, which is a biologic drug called Humira. My journey to this point was not an easy one. My wife was always concerned about the side effects of the treatments. If she felt the treatments were getting to me, she would not hesitate to say something. The treatments would work for a time, then the psoriasis would come back. Going through the treatments caused me to miss work and in some cases disastrous side effects, especially when taking cyclosporin. My blood pressure would skyrocket and my head would hurt constantly. The end was a trip to the emergency room, the doctors thinking I was having a stroke. After this and a short time on Methotrexate, which just made me feel bad, my dermatologist told me there was nothing else that was FDA approved for treatment. I remember that day well. What was I going to do? How bad would my psoriasis get without treatment? What quality of life would I have? How would I be able to do my job, which requires a lot of interaction with other people? In the next second, after all this was going through my mind, my dermatologist, who I trust, started explaining to me about biologic drugs which target a specific operation in your body which causes psoriasis. He said they were starting a research study for a new one, and would I be interested in participating? The consent and waiver forms listed all these bad things that could happen to you. However, my wife and I decided there was no choice to participate in the clinical trial. The alternative was worse. 4 weeks of no treatments due to the requirements of the clinical trial and 12 weeks on a placebo was not very pleasant. My psoriasis spread like wildfire with constant burning and itching. My wife said my legs looked like mincemeat. After the 12 weeks, they told me I would get the drug. Within 60 days after receiving the drug, I was almost clear. That was over 11 years ago, and I have been pretty clear ever since, almost to the point I feel I have been cured. I took some photos of myself before I started on the biologic and get them out to look at them to remind me that I am not cured, but both my wife and myself consider it a miracle. I still get a patch once in a while, but with over-the-counter cream, it goes away. I have not experienced the side effects they say you can have, and I don't feel my immune system has been compromised. I have to get blood work every 12 weeks and a TB test every year. I have to keep the drug refrigerated until I am ready to inject, which is once every 2 weeks. The most time it takes in the injection process is to let the syringe get to room temperature. I learned early and very painfully not to inject with a cold serum. My biggest fear now is that it will stop working. I have met people in my journey as a volunteer with the National Psoriasis Foundation that this drug did not help them, or it worked for a while and then stopped working, just like these people have said, or that they had side effects. I also know people that it has helped like me. I know that the drug is doing something to my body and think about the long-term effects because I've been on the drug for so long. But using this drug for me has been a blessing. The cost has been offset by AbbVie, and I am grateful for that, although finding the right insurance is a challenge each year because of the way the insurance companies treat specialty drugs. In conclusion, the most important things I have learned over the past 30 years of having plaque psoriasis is be educated. Education, education, education. Not only for yourself, but your family as well. Find a good dermatologist, someone who has empathy but tells you like it is. And be involved. This is a disease of heredity and genetics, if not for yourself, for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you again to the panelists. Oh, you want to shut your mic? It's so helpful to hear your stories that we can then build on to hear it. And we heard about those of you who are more well-controlled, the fortunate well-controlled, and those who are not as well-controlled and who suffer, who have very, very complex regimens. You all have complex regimens, but more or less degree. Will you agree? Do you agree that we've identified folks that have really run a gamut of experiences that reflect you? Okay, good. Lots of head nods there. So good. You've done exactly what we were hoping to set the context. The second portion of the afternoon will look very similar to the first. We're going to go through and talk about each one of these. We're going to start with a polling question. So anyone need a clicker before we get into that polling question? Okay. And I'll take this time to say welcome back to the folks on the web. We are reading your comments and getting them in, and we appreciate your participation. I think we can go to the polling question. We'll give you guys, the guys and ladies who haven't had a clicker, a chance to answer. But it's a complicated question. I won't read the drug names because I would embarrass myself. So I'm just going to read through the top choices here. Have you ever used any of the following medical products? And by that we mean drug therapies or medical devices, I believe prescribed, that would come from a doctor's orders, to help treat your psoriasis. We have another question that will ask a few other types of treatments. Okay, so A, topical treatments, B, oral or injected medications, C, another prescription medication, such as a pain medication, phototherapy, another medical, like prescribed medical product, drug or device not mentioned, and if you're not using any sort of prescription medical products, choose F, please. We'll give you some time. Choose all that apply. I have a feeling we may not be surprised by the answers that we're going to see. Yes, there is a lot of medical product usage here. Almost all of you currently using or have tried topical treatments. 3/4 of you in the room with the oral injected, and then phototherapy comes. Many of you have tried phototherapy. We'll have a question on that later. And some of you are not using any medical products. We might come back and ask you some questions too about that as well. On the web?
Very similar. We have all the folks that responded said that they used topical treatments, and then after that, phototherapy was the most frequently used.
After the topical?
After.
after
Then was
topical.
phototherapy, and then was...
After that was, actually, phototherapy and oral or injected medications are tied right now for second place.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start with the oral or injected medications. We heard, I think, several different examples mentioned of different types of different products. So I think instead of going through step product by product, we'll keep it general. Again, you can mention which product you're on, but what we're really looking for is to glean out if a product works for you, what is it addressing well? If it doesn't work for you, what is it not addressing well? And then maybe we'll get to the downsides later. So let's first focus on treatments that are working well for people. And what we want to hear is what they're working well for. So I see a hand right here, and then we can go. If you can state your name.
Okay, I'm Summer. I spoke earlier, but currently I'm on Remicade, and hearing Sarah's story was exactly like mine. I actually drive a 6-hour round trip to get my infusions every 6 weeks. I've failed every other biologic, so Remicade is my last option. It has cleared my psoriasis, so I'm very thankful for that. I had it on the soles of my feet and the palms of my hands, like I said earlier. But the psoriatic arthritis, which is, it's not under control at all. So. Okay. Clearing one, but not the other, and like you said, I drive 3 hours there. Yep. Have to wait 2 hours because they don't want to, make sure I show up because it's a very expensive medication. Sit there for 4 hours, then 3 hours back home. Yep. So that, and then 3 days after, I'm sleeping most of the time.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Summer. We'll go back there.
Renee Andrews, my son, is the one that's 11, and he is currently on Methotrexate injections and Remicade infusions off-label because they're not approved on-label. And we're at a point right now where they're working for the most part, but we're getting, slight patches. And what scares me is we've tried and failed a lot of the other biologics. I don't know where we go from here because right now there is no approved on-label that he can take. And it's an expensive drug. So we're hoping for in the future that we have more choices if he does start rebounding and the Remicade and Methotrexate don't work for him anymore, that we're hoping in the future we have more options.
Okay. So while we're there, so let's stay with this and we'll come back. Other kids or teens, do you have or parents of those, do you have a similar experience on any of those products or different experience, any experience on those products? Okay, we'll come back here and then we'll go over.
We were on Methotrexate and Enbrel. The Methotrexate, I find it gives little relief. The Enbrel did nothing at all. So right now we're back on Methotrexate. He's been approved for the Stelara, so we're going to see how that does for him.
Okay, thank you very much. And then back here.
Yeah, my name is PJ. When my number 3 daughter was diagnosed as a teenager with both psoriatic arthritis and skin disease, biologics have been around for a while for adults, but providers were extremely hesitant to prescribe biologics for anyone under the age of 18, regardless of the fact that there was a clear presentation of psoriatic arthritis and a strong family history of early psoriatic arthritis onset going back multiple generations. It was a real fight to finally get them to accept the idea that a clinical diagnosis of PA at the age of 17 would actually indicate the use of etanercept or another TNFA medication, because it was either going to work within a fairly short period of time or it was simply not going to. It was a real fight that went on for a year and a half. Today, she's found that as time's gone by that actually another TNF inhibitor is more effective for her, but it allowed her to complete her education, to go to college and be successful, and today she's pursuing a professional career in nursing. But all of those things would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible, without the intervention of disease-modifying biologic medications available at a younger age.
Thank you, PJ. Okay. We might come back. We recognize that there's a lot of adults in the room, and we're hearing a lot of adult perspectives on and experiences with the treatments, but we did want to specifically ask about the pediatric. And as you go and encourage parents or kids or teens to talk about their experiences, please encourage them to write to the docket. It's very important for us to hear that. Okay, let's go back to just any product that, and if it's working well, what it's addressing. Diane.
Okay, I take a biologic that totally clears me. But to get to that point, doing the usual method of getting approvals, you have to start with the less costly or the most costly and see what works for you. What we haven't touched upon is the difference in people. Some people, TNF inhibitors do not work at all. Only the IL-12, 23, or IL-17 work for them. I'm one of those people. But unfortunately, the lesser expensive biologics that are out there are the ones that have been around a long time, and those are all the TNF blockers. So it took about 3 years of my body fighting the disease, which can lead to comorbidities because your body internally is fighting the disease, puts pressure on your heart and everything else. It took a couple of years to get to the point where I could take one that would clear me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm on a medication that's working great for me for both skin and joints. And that medication is Cosentex. I also use Talconex as topical. So I'll keep it short.
And when you say it's working great for you, let me follow up on something we were mentioning this morning, because I asked in the room if you're sitting here with maybe with clearing of skin clearance, but you're still sitting with either itching or pain. When you say it's working great for you, do you mean all of those aspects or particular aspects that would be bothersome to you?
Well, I have minor pain in my joints compared to before. And my skin is, I would have to say, 99% clear, except for inverse psoriasis, which I use my Talconex on, and some other non-steroidal creams on.
Great. It's really helpful when you say it works well to be concrete into what's really working well and what kind of change you're seeing. So thank you, Todd. Okay. I think right here in the blue.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, and then we'll go back there.
I wanted to speak. I don't actually have psoriasis. My mom does. And I wanted to say something after hearing everyone else talk so you can hear what it is you deal with it in your family. My mom has the TNF doesn't work for her. When you plan vacations, you have to plan around what her psoriasis look like because you may not want to go into a pool or wear shorts. So you don't do Florida in the summer because then you're just going to sweat because you'll wear pants. My daughter got eczema and has extreme sensitive skin, and the first fear was she has psoriasis, and anytime a spot comes out, that's the first thing you go to because you have a family member that has it. The pain she feels from the cracks and the arthritis that stop her from doing things, especially in the winter. We live in Georgia, so it's not as cold. The heart disease that's found in psoriasis patients, and last year she had a scare where she had to go on heart medicines because she might have had a stroke. She's not even 60 yet, and to think that you could die from something else because of this is extremely fearful. When she had pregnancy, which is something I think you should consider when women, a couple people here last night at the reception said when they were pregnant, their psoriasis cleared up. Unfortunately for men, you don't go through that. But if women during pregnancy have their psoriasis clear, there's got to be something that they're producing to help clear that you might want to explore, look more into, that may help more women broader across the board. Also wanted to say that because of the medication she takes, she has to pay $4,500 every quarter, which some of it is paid back by the insurance companies, but she's on Kaiser, so you're stuck with one dermatologist and one sort of medication, and that really, halters any help because the prescriptions are so expensive. On top of that, I wanted to thank all of you here and the people I met last night. I'm truly in awe and impressed with all of you that you talk about this because there are so many people that have it, and now when I see someone I can automatically tell with a patch, oh, that's psoriasis. And it just, I'm really proud of all y'all. This has to be extremely scary for everyone to go through. So
we agree. Thank you, Amanda. So let's take a few more. We're going to, lots of meaty and important issues have been raised. Let's try to focus on specific aspects of the condition that are being addressed in our next few questions, because we have time. We have things that go into the decision making, like the cost factors and the access factors. We have a polling question for that. So I'll ask for right now just to focus more on those issues. Do we have other folks? Okay, yes, back there, Diane.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, well, I wanted to ask one question and make one statement. My question was, I'd be curious to find out how many people, I'm participating in a double-blind study right now on medications. And because I needed medication very badly and fortunately was able to get in on the study. But I was curious to see how many other people were involved in double-blind studies or involved in the psoriasis research studies with the medications. And also, my statement was, is anything being done in the avenue of gene therapy?
Well, let's take the first question. I think would be a very informative. We were going to ask it later, but you bring up is a good time to ask it now. You could a show of hands if you have participated in a clinical trial. Okay, so a nice active bunch. Thank you for participating in clinical trials. If we have time, we'll come back and explore that a bit further. I'm not sure if we can address all the questions about what things are looking at. I'll look to my colleagues about the gene therapy. We won't be able to, we don't have the right experts here to address that, but it's the question you raised is noted. So, okay.
Hi, for a while before being in the study today, I was only using topical treatments, and among all that was prescribed to me, it was clobetasol and Clobix spray that worked for me. It cleared up the redness, the plaque, and it minimized the itching. I'm in a clinical trial now for Cosentyx, and I've just received my third injection. And on my second injection, there's a very, very significant change because the plaque has gone down, the redness has gone down significantly too. The itching is still there, but it's not as severe. I mean, if you guys have been looking at me, I've been scratching myself from time to time. But it's the first biologic that I have ever tried, and it seems to work.
Okay, thank you very much. Take a few more. Okay, you want it?
I'm Terry Tyson. I live in Atlanta. I've had the disease for 41 years, so I've had all of these treatments over various periods of time, but I've been on Enbrel the longest now. I've been on Enbrel for since before it was approved by the FDA, so I think that's been 16 or 17 years now. That has worked beautifully for me. I guess my concern over time would be that we do more to stimulate and promote the development of drugs and treatments that are going to attack the systemic nature of an autoimmune disease. I'm less concerned at this age I'm at now than topical treatments are great and we all need those, but what we really need are treatments and modalities that are going to attack the comorbid nature of the disease and help prolong lifespan and do other systemic things to deal with the really long-term nature of the disease. I think one of the things we've heard a little bit of today, but not enough of, so I hope next time there's a convening like this we hear more about it, is just that, the very nature of the disease itself, and what does the nature of the disease then demand in terms of treatments and investments.
That's right. Thank you very much. One more, and then we'll go to a web summary.
Hi, my name is Lillian, and I've had psoriasis for 56 years. So, of course, I have tried everything as well. Currently, I'm on Remicade and Methotrexate. And the only things that have ever worked for me, I was on Methotrexate for like 20 years, and it worked, kept me about 80% clear. And then the biologics came along. My doctor thought I'd been on Methotrexate way too long, so I went to Enbrel for 3 years, which did absolutely nothing. Put me in a bad flare, and it took me another 3 years to recover from that. And currently I'm on Remicade, which was working phenomenally up until last October when I started breaking out again. So I've added Methotrexate back in rather than trying another biologic. So the combination of Methotrexate and Remicade keep me about 95% clear. But the itching, the few little spots I have, which I'm grateful for the few little spots I have, I still itch like crazy on those spots.
Okay. Can I ask, so let's build upon this, a more general question. When you're talking about your treatments are achieving skin clearance, can you have a show of hands, even if you're pretty happy with your treatment, is it still leaving the itching? Is it still leaving any pain? Okay. Okay, that's very helpful. Can we, what are we hearing on the web, Meghana?
Sure. Many of the similar stories. We had one participant who was on a biologic and then developed a rare near-fatal lung infection, active histoplasmosis. And so because of that, she wasn't allowed to take any immunosuppressive therapy to control the progression after that. And so that's definitely affected her because she doesn't have any options because of that. And then other than that, a lot of people have reiterated how they are living with symptoms which are side effects of the drugs themselves and so forth.
So you're living with symptoms that are side effects of the drug. Let's take just a few minutes to highlight of the side effects you're facing, just so we can get as many as we can. We'll keep it kind of brief. What are the biggest side effects that are most bothersome to you? We've heard other downsides, but now let's focus on side effects.
It's not currently bothersome to me, but I tried Enbrel, it cleared my skin, gave me a near fatal respiratory infection. I was in the hospital for 10 days.
Okay. Okay. Others? Oh, yeah. I don't think we have no mics on this side, so okay. 1 second. We'll go here. Fujita.
About 2 or 3 years ago, I could barely get out of the bed and walk. In fact, I went to the doctor and was basically told that I was going to probably need knee replacements at some point. At that time, I do have both. I have psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. At that time, the psoriasis part of my disease was very well under control. It was very mild. I took Enbrel, and the Enbrel was almost like a miracle drug as far as joints. I could walk, I could move. It was as if I didn't need a knee replacement or anything. I could function very normally. The bad side effect that I'm still coping with, though, is that the skin condition worsened. So I went from having a very mild form of the disease to a very severe form of the disease. So now trying to get something that will manage that has been the problem that I face.
Okay, thank you. So we had Caleb here. Oh, Kendall, let's let Kendall ask a follow-up question.
Yes, I'm curious how often that happens for people who have both psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis, that the treatment seems to be unlinked, or that the successful treatment of one can lead to an exacerbation of the other. So if you wanted to do that polling style.
Yep, sure. So following up on, and what was your name again? Deidre. Following up on what Deidre said, how many it addresses, let's take first that it addresses the psoriatic arthritis, but inflames the dermal aspects of it. Raise your hand, please. Okay, I've been asked to count out the number of hand raises for the web, so about 5 of you. Web, web folks, it's only going to be an approximation because I can't count that fast. And then so the other way around, you found something that really has worked well for your dermal symptoms, but has either worsened or not at all, let's say worsened your psoriatic arthritis. Okay, we have about 10, I'd say, here. Okay, what about just it addresses your skin aspects, but does absolutely nothing, but it doesn't worsen your arthritis. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. So we had Caleb here.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the statement a minute ago. You know, for me, I think the biologics work really great on the visible aspect, but it's all of the invisible things that go on that's related to this disease that it doesn't get addressed, like the fatigue, the itch, the burning, you know, all of that, it doesn't get taken away. And I think being able to figure out how to address that is paramount to being able to like lead a normal life.
Okay, thank you, Caleb. We're going to actually have, I think, a polling question that will help tease out what would be meaningful for you. Jane, do you have a question?
Yes. Several people have brought up the fact that the skin clears, but the burning or the itch is still there. And I wanted to clarify, is it still there in the places where you still have a little bit of psoriasis left, or is it still everywhere?
Okay, so how about in just specific areas? Is it still there? Okay, we have about 10, 5 to 10. And how about it's still everywhere? This underlying, as was mentioned before, what was your, Melissa? As Melissa mentioned, where it's still sort of all body. Okay, about 5. So about half. Thank you, Jane. Okay, I want to make sure we get to the other therapies too. One that we wanted to ask about was phototherapy. We have about 40% of you in the room, so that's approximately 30 folks in the room, and several on the web. Can you describe any comments on how that's working for you and whether you are using your own, as we heard from a gentleman, one that's in your own home or one that, or if you're going to the clinic for that? Okay, we'll start with John.
This is John again. In 1970, I built my own light box.
Well, okay, you can also mention if you built one. Okay, we'll put that in.
The reason I did it, because when I went to the dermatologist, he said the only thing available was a light, a single light. He says the problem was if you expose one side of your body and then expose the other side of your body, you had a danger of burning yourself. So I said, let me think about this, and I built a Superman box, what I call it. It looked like a telephone booth, lined it with aluminum foil, put 2 bulbs in each corner at a 45-degree angle, put an industrial timer on it, and would use that to go in there daily to try to clear my psoriasis. It did work on my upper torso, but unfortunately I had bronchitis within 24 hours. It was all back. After that, several years later, I went to PUVA. And as explained by some of the people on the panel, they didn't tell me what the side effects might be down the road, 15 years. And since that time, I've had nine biopsies and at least 4 operations to remove basal carcinoma. But I still have to be checked by dermatologist on every time I go there. I think if people had in-home light boxes, they would be more used than if you have to travel. I used to have to travel an hour to take PUVA, and the first exposures were like 20 seconds. And I have to travel another hour to work. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do this, but I had to do it 3 days a week. I did it because I was hoping it would work.
Thank you, John. One more comment on the phototherapy? Yes.
So, I actually don't use phototherapy. I'm in a study, since phototherapy does help. We'll just do the study. Anyways, I have a brother that does phototherapy, and he's a vet, and because of that, and a college student now, he doesn't qualify for a lot of, or insurance-wise, for other medications. So he does do phototherapy 5 days a week, and it does help. But if he goes 2 days without doing it, it's all right back again. So it works for him if he does it every single day, 5 days a week at least.
Okay. And other folks, does this resonate with you about the temporal aspect? Okay, we're having a lot of head nods for that, so thank you for that point. Okay, we'll take one more on phototherapy, and then we'll have to move on to other types of treatments.
Terry Tyson again. So one thing I'll say about phototherapy, haven't had it for many, many years. When there were not other therapies available, that's what we did, right? And so I've had skin cancer twice removed as a result probably of that, but who really knows, right, what causes these things. The one thing I will say about phototherapy, and I'll just reiterate what I said before, is that if we solve the external manifestation of the disease with phototherapy, how do we know that the internal manifestation of the disease is really being resolved? So my concern, again, is that if we allow insurers to support these external therapies without requiring the internal therapies that would benefit all of us, are we really doing a service to people with the disease?
Thank you. Okay. Feel free to clap anytime. And that the webcast folks can then hear that you're clapping. So the prescription medications, we didn't specify which one. So can I, if you feel comfortable, just a show of hands, how many of you are on a pain medication? Are there any types of specific pain medications you'd want to get a show of hands for? Just pain in general? Okay. Well, how about, can we ask about for anxiety or depression? Okay. Were there others, just briefly, any others that, so not one of those two that you said for an other prescription medication? Okay, right here.
Sleeping pills. I've been taking a sleeping pill since I took prednisone 8 years ago. 3 weeks on prednisone, and I've been on sleeping pills for 8 years because of it.
All right, thank you. So let's put it, show of hands. So something to help with sleep of any kind. Okay, so a handful of you, about 10 of you or so. Any other prescription medications to address things that you attribute to psoriasis? Yeah.
A lot of us who've been around for a long time have been using prescription antihistamines. The most popular one that is usually prescribed in dermatology inpatient clinics is hydroxyzine. The brand name is Atarax. Generally speaking, most patients would start at 5 or 10 milligrams, and it helps to calm down the itch quite a bit, but a side effect is that it makes people very, very sleepy. Mm-hmm. It is true that if you take it consistently for several days, eventually that sleepiness will subside to some extent. The problem with it is that the longer that you take this medication as a maintenance medication to control itch, especially, for instance, if you go to sleep, people scratch in their sleep, they don't even know it. Mm-hmm. So they may be able to control it during the day, but you wake up in the morning and you're covered with a bloody mess because you tore off the gloves that you were wearing to try to protect your body. So, but over time, that dose needs to increase. So at this point, somebody like myself who's been treating this for over 40 years, you know, I'm at about 50 milligrams of Atarax on a daily basis as a maintenance dose just to keep myself being able to concentrate and function and pay attention without being fully distracted by that particular symptom.
Thank you very much. Can I ask if there's any specific, before we move on to the next question, any more about specific medical products or prescription therapies that you'd want to ask about or aspects? Okay. Yes, Kendall, please.
One of the choices is other medical products not mentioned. And, you know, I think we've heard about the prescription medications, and I think hydroxyzine falls into that category, but I'm curious if people could mention specific others that haven't been listed there. I don't know if that, I mean, phototherapy is up there, so I guess I'm at a loss as to what the other medical products are.
It'll come on. It'll come. They're really temperamental today. This is more than usual.
Oh,
yes.
yes.
Now we can.
Okay.
I think the correct name is occlusion. And what that was, they basically put like tar all over me. Then they put me in pajamas. Then they wet the pajamas. Then they put me in a plastic suit, and I would sit in that for 8 hours. And then I would do light treatment. This was back like high school, college. And I would do that treatment for, what is it? Okay, that's the name of it. Yeah, so I would do that for like 4 weeks at a time on like my winter break for school. So that's other medical treatment that I use.
Okay. We have back there. And we'll go to.
There's two things that I've tried before. I had a similar thing that I did for my scalp with peanut oil of some sort, and it was like a couple hours, not as long. And then I found like moisturizer really helps, specifically with urea and lanolin or something like this.
Okay.
It's very temperamental which ones.
Okay, we have lots of. Okay,
Is
go
it-
ahead.
Is it
right
on?
there. Yeah.
This is Jody. What about other stuff? Like, I go through so many Band-Aids that at any point in time I have probably 30 of them on me because of bleeding and covering things like that. Post-op boots that I wear that help when I have flares on my feet. Gloves. Everywhere I go, there's a glove for me to put on. So I'm always buying stuff like that, and that helps a lot.
Okay. I think the next polling question is going to get at these things. So let's see. Let's take 3 more. We're going to go right here, and then put Pashia.
It's okay. I tried the eczema laser, and what I found with that is the people that actually gave that the laser didn't really know anything about it. And I went for, I have a severe foot psoriasis, and it basically doesn't work for that. And like they had no idea what it really worked for, or what if it did or it didn't. So it was a failed therapy for me.
I also had the eczema laser for 3 times a week for 3 months on my scalp with no change.
Pashia.
Now, someone mentioned prednisone, and I was on prednisone for something else other than psoriasis. But what I found that it totally cleared up my psoriasis. My nails grew back, and my toenails grew back, and the inflammation and the scaling, all of that cleared up when I was on prednisone. Now, I know prednisone is like a great drug, but you can't be on it long term, and the side effects are crazy. But is there something, that could be developed or is in the making, or along the lines of prednisone, what the ingredients are? Because there's something in prednisone that works. And just to kind of pinpoint that would be great. Thank you.
I think you've raised a very interesting question that we won't be able to address today, but it is noted that there is a desire for something that could address symptoms in that way. So thank you, Pashia. Let's move to the polling question. Next one. I'm sorry, we have so much to cover today, and we would love to have everyone be able to get all of their comments in. So I'll put another plug out for the docket. It is really important. Follow up on these specific medications, especially the prescription ones. Just tell us your experiences, please. But besides your drug therapies, what else are you doing to manage any symptoms that you experience because of your psoriasis? And you can check all that apply. A, dietary and herbal supplements. B, diet modifications. C, over-the-counter products. D, complementary or alternative therapies. Some other therapies that have not been mentioned yet, or if you're not doing or taking any of these sort of not other than drug therapies to treat your symptoms. You can do current and past. Okay. All right, so the most here is the over-the-counter products. I think we heard about some of those, the coal tar, the Epsom, the complementary alternative therapies, some large number of other therapies, and some of you have mentioned the dietary modifications that were mentioned before. I think from Diane over lunch, she mentioned MSG and sugar as being something that she has to avoid. We might not have, I can tell you, we don't have a lot of time to cover into every one of these, but is there something in particular from this list that you'd like to explore? I would personally, just without going into too much detail, what are the complementary therapies, since over a quarter of you have said those? Just what are they, and briefly, are they working or not working, generally? Okay, back there. Okay,
Well,
first we'll go here to Diane.
I had a statement about the, it wasn't on the complementary, although it may be complementary, but another therapy that I have done, I used to go up to a lake in New Hampshire every year, and when my psoriasis got very bad, I would go up and soak in the lake every day. And it wasn't necessarily Epsom salt, but it was the minerals in the water that cleared me significantly when I did that on a daily basis.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll come over here.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Pratt, and I had gone to doctor, well, the first question, the complementary or alternative therapies. Right now I'm doing acupuncture, which helps a little bit, not necessarily with like any skin psoriasis, but with pain. So, but I don't know that I like super encourage that. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not sure yet if that's effective. But 7 years ago, I was sick of trying to figure out why I was in so much pain and how to help my psoriasis. So I did a cleanse, and at the end of so for 3 weeks I didn't eat. All I ate was fruits and vegetables and then a supplement. And my pain went away, and my psoriasis started clearing up, and I didn't itch anymore. So after those 3 weeks, I added, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just eat normal food again. So I added wheat back in, and then it hurt my stomach. So I left out the wheat, and then the next day I ate a lot of corn. And my psoriasis, like my skin itched almost immediately. So for the last 7 years, I haven't been eating corn. And almost all my psoriasis is gone. Like I have one little patch just barely that came back. So anyway, corn is a big thing, and that's a reason why I'm nervous to take any sort of medications, because most medications have some sort of corn as a filler in them. And so I'm nervous that if I took, I also have psoriatic arthritis, and so I'm nervous that if I took some sort of medicine to help that, it would make my my psoriasis come back.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Clarissa.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking at alternative therapies, and I have found that consistently salt therapy works. The Epsom salts, this lady was talking about that. It works particularly well if a person is really itchy or they're hurting really bad. To soak in a tub with about 4 cups of Epsom salt, and in conjunction with the phototherapy, it works great.
Okay,
it works great.
Thank you. Okay, we can have one more, and then we have a couple other topics to address. So we'll go right here. You had your hand up next. I forget your name.
I'm Dan.
Dan, thank you.
So summers are like the good time for me. Salt water and direct sunlight. My uncle also, he lives overseas in Israel, and he goes to the Dead Sea, which is also a heavy, dense salt. And one thing that I wanted to mention also, and disclosure, I work for this company as well. There's a company called Patients Like Me that does data collection. And also, like, I've heard a lot of people talking today about emotional support and peer support, and it's a global support group. So
thank you, Dan. Okay, to wrap up on the other drug therapies, let me ask a show of hands questions. that will give us a sense of your overall feeling about these other therapies. So how many of you, with a show of hands, and on the web you can voice in as well, how many of you would say that collectively your non-drug therapies or lifestyle changes give you as much or more overall benefit as any medication? If you could raise your hand. Okay. How many of you, I'm sorry, we have about 5. That's, I think, 5. How many of you, raise your hands please, if you would say that you're doing one of these non-drug therapies and that they're important, but they can't match the benefit of the medications that you've tried. Okay. It's very important. We ask this type of question for the other disease area, the other conditions, and we get very varying responses, so it's important to ask this question. All experiences are different, the different areas. Okay, so can I have a summary, any comments on the web about these non-drug therapies?
Sure. We did hear from several participants that they go to the Dead Sea for 4 weeks, 4 weeks at a time. One person said she went for 4 weeks and it kept her symptom-free for 6 months. Other things mentioned include nutrition, controlling dairy and grains, mineral baths, juice from hot pepper leaves, Vicks Vapor Rub, turmeric, vinegar tablets, vitamin D. And then going back to the previous with prescription treatments, we also heard that Cosentyx helped clear this person's psoriasis. Otezla was another one that we had heard. Vectisol or Vecticol. And
oh, we won't make you say what the...
Okay.
If I don't say it, you don't say
okay.
it.
And clobetasol.
Thank you, Sajanya. This resonates with one point that was made earlier today in the morning about I personally appreciate how when you try these things and you hear about them working for people with psoriasis, how you have to balance that with all the other things that people are telling you to try. I'm sure that is very difficult to try to balance and manage all of that. Okay, we're going to move off and talk now about the kind of summarize, move into some more global things. And I have a show of hands question for you to help with that. And so on the web, please ping us with your show of hands through the comments. So when you think about all your therapies together and where you are today, how many of you shared John's perspective, and I think a few others on the panel, that you still battle your condition, you still deal with it, but you feel you are managing it, that it's pretty well managed, or you're managing it the best that you can expect? Show of hands if you agree with that. Okay, we have about 25 folks, approximately half of you, and so I'm going to ask the other side of this. If you can please raise your hand if you feel your condition is not in control or getting progressively worse, that you're getting very little relief where you are today. Okay, the other half of you. So we have half and half. And I think we've heard throughout the discussion what symptoms are addressed well. We heard Sarah talk about, and others found that resonating about what they were addressing and not well. So what I want to focus on is if you haven't heard a particular symptom already yet mentioned, that you wish, one of those skin-related symptoms that you wish was better managed in your treatment, what is that? And on the phone, we can, if there's anyone who wants to contribute to this over the phone, we'll ask you to focus on symptoms that are not well managed, that you wish could be better managed. Would anyone like to address this? Okay, we'll start with Sarah.
Yeah, I didn't bring this up very well earlier, but I think symptoms in the groin are not very well managed either. They give you some topical thing that you put on your face, but it's painful, it's hard to put on, it's hard to administer, and what they give you really doesn't work.
Okay, thank you very much. Right here? We'll go over here.
Sometimes another issue is compliance. Like, for example, I had scalp psoriasis, and they give you shampoo or items to put in your hair, where I don't wash my hair every day. So sometimes compliance is an issue with different medicines.
Okay, thanks. Right here. Okay. 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 We got a lot of head nods to that one. Okay. A couple more. Back there.
The cracking and the bleeding on the feet.
Okay.
I mean, with stepping, of course, they're going to crack it up, but we don't have anything to soften.
Yep.
Or to control the bleeding throughout the day. So, like, you have the bloody socks.
We'll take Summer, then John, and then Teresa. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
To go off what she said a little bit, since I have it on the soles of my feet, the swelling.
Okay.
So when my feet would swell from the arthritis, the psoriasis would crack and bleed. So, you know, swelling in places where you have psoriasis, when you have the arthritis, that's a really big problem.
Thank you very much, Summer. And then John.
This is a subset of psoriatic arthritis.
Okay.
It's enthesitis, which is the inflammation of tissue at the skeleton. I don't think that's being very well addressed. I know it's rare, but people that have it are really suffering.
Okay. Thank you, John. And then, Teresa.
Yeah. Thank you, Teresa. I was going to go back with the groin thing, that I'm on a phenomenal biologic. It instantly started clearing up. You haven't approved it yet, but I like it. But the only issue I have, it's still on my lady part situation, and nothing, like a topical will work for a little bit, but it's something that almost has to be applied every day, and it is the tightening skin thing is the biggest issue with it, and so it does often like crack and bleed, but a lot of the other topicals also are too strong.
Okay.
There.
Thank you very much. Do we have any folks on the phone? Okay. If you're on the web, you can just keep sending in those comments. Okay, then we can take one more. Oh, no, wait for the mic. It's for the webcast to hear.
I'm Jennifer. I don't think that the scalp is very well addressed. I feel like the scalp is a completely separate entity from the body, and that a lot of times when the body clears, the scalp remains as problematic as it was from the beginning.
Okay. A lot of head nods on that. Yes. Okay. So now, any questions before we move on about symptoms, about being better addressed, that you want to follow up on anything you've heard so far? Hansam, and turn your mic on, please.
I'm curious about that question earlier from Panchir on prednisone. That's a corticosteroid, and it has been for quite a while that topical corticosteroids were also used under occlusion. It seems that that's not much used these days. So I would like to know how many people are using topical
corticosteroid
under occlusion.
A topical corticosteroid for what?
Under occlusion.
Okay. You guys understand?
We used to tell people to put saran wrap around. So if that sounds familiar, it's when you put your steroid on and then you wrap yourself with saran wrap.
Okay, thanks. Show of hands. Okay, so we have a dozen or so answering that question. Thank you so much, Hunsan. Okay. So let's move on to the next polling question, which ties into this a little bit. We're going to start to get into what symptoms could be addressed that would be most meaningful to you when you're looking at a treatment. If you could say, this is what I'm really looking to get out of a treatment. This is the polling question that will help us get to that discussion. So when considering a new treatment for psoriasis, which of the following benefits would you consider to be the most meaningful? And here you can choose up to 3. A, reduced scaling or flaking. B, reduced itching. C, reduced redness and inflammation. D, reduction in the number of plaques. E, reduction in the number of pustules. F, reduced pain or soreness. G, reduced burning or stinging, or something other. And this would be in a treatment that addresses skin-related aspects of psoriasis. Give it a few more minutes. Okay. So let's see. We have the most being the reduced scaling or flaking, the reduced itching. It just goes down the line except for E and the reduction in the number of pustules, and then H would be other. For those of you that's other, what is it? What is your other? Okay, Sarah did one, and someone else do an other?
Fatigue.
Fatigue, okay, great. Another other? Diane back there?
My other is, you know, the saying, the heartbreak of psoriasis, I passed it down to one of my children.
Okay.
That I would like to see eliminated.
Okay. Very fair point. On the web?
We are seeing that they'd like to see reduction in fatigue, reduced side effects. One person said that it's only meaningful if you're able to treat all of it. So she said, I wouldn't consider reducing itching to be a meaningful improvement if my skin was still flaking off.
Okay.
Or I wouldn't consider a less time-consuming treatment if it came at the cost of potentially severe side effects.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's another very fair point. Then this web commenter is not going to be necessarily happy with the next question, which is the same question, but now we're forcing you to choose the most, what benefit you would most, which one benefit would you consider to be the most meaningful if it could be addressed. Reduced scaling or flaking, reduced itching. C, reduced redness and inflammation. D, reduction in the number of plaques. E, reduction in the number of pustules. F, reduced pain or soreness. G, reduced burning or stinging. Or H, something else, other. I'm hearing a few grumbles in the participants. Maybe we'll take that as a sign that this is maybe a very hard question to pose. But you're bearing with us. Most of you have clicked on the clicker. Okay. Well, this tells us that if we force you to choose one, there is a lot of variation within this group here, with nothing overwhelming. They've got the scaling, the flaking, and the itching. I think those have consistently throughout our conversation been the two that we've heard the most about today, so that's consistent. But we also have the reduction in the number of plaque and the reduction of reduced pain or soreness. And on the web?
We have 30% of the folks who say reduce redness and inflammation, and then 25% say reduce scaling or flaking, and 25% for reduction in the number of plaques.
Okay. Great. Anything here that you want to follow up on any of those? Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll take the web commenter's point that it's hard to probably isolate any one thing, but this has been very helpful to us to kind of get a sense of what types of benefits are where you might put priorities if we had to make you put priorities on some things. Okay, let's move on. We have a scenario question. So this is a question, and I'll read this through in a second, but let me set it up for a minute. We're very interested in understanding and we've heard some today about this, about how you approach these treatment decisions. As we saw, you are facing these decisions over and over and over again. And so we want to know what goes through your mind as you are faced with a new treatment decision. So we have a scenario, and we're going to ask what first comes to mind or what questions you might have about that. The scenario is this. Imagine that a new injectable medication is indicated to treat moderate to severe psoriasis. It's recently been approved by FDA, and your doctor believes that you may be a good candidate for this medication. In the clinical trials that were conducted, the medication was shown to achieve at least 75% clearance of skin lesions in approximately 1/2 of the adults who were treated with this product within 3 months' time. Okay. Common side effects of the medication include fatigue, headaches, weight gain, swelling, sore throat, diarrhea, and upper respiratory tract infection. And the drug is also believed to cause rare but serious side effects such as liver problems, cancer, stroke, infertility, or birth defects. So the question, we threw a doozy at you. So the question is not, it's just what first comes to mind or what first questions would you be asking your doctor about this medication if this is all the information you were given?
I would go right in the order you have that there because I'm in the situation that I've tried everything. So the word new is the only thing I see up there because I have a new treatment. Then 75%, I'm like 50% of them, that 50-50 chance, that's a lot better than the other ones I've had. And then the last one is, oh well, I have no choice.
Let's let Julie here.
I would ask if any of my doctor's other patients had tried it and what their experience was, and if I could talk with them.
Someone? Okay, and then Pujita over there, and then we'll come here, up here.
Of course, I would probably ask about the most serious side effects first.
Okay.
I would probably ask the number of people in that study that had those problems.
Okay.
I would ask how rare is rare.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure I agree numerically.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go with Carol, and then we'll go to Sarah.
This touches on a pet peeve of mine. I never feel like I have enough information. If 75% of half of the people cleared, how'd the other half do?
So what was the overall response rate across the population, not just those who we say responded well? Okay, we'll go to Sarah, and then we'll go to John, and then we'll come up here.
I always ask how it will interfere or interact with all my other medications.
Okay, great. John.
One of the first questions I would ask is, this was kind of like, what I'm taking now is, it's specifically what percentage of the people that were in the clinical trial got the different side effects. In other words, was it 25% or was it 2%?
Okay. And when you say the side effects, do you mean those more common?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Okay.
I would want specific percentage information of the population of the clinical trial and percentage-wise that actually got those side effects.
John, can I ask you, how would you factor that into your decision?
That would be pretty high. I think that, because, this is what, this kind of brings back memories because this is the kind of language that was in, other than there was a thing that might kill you, when I was in a clinical trial, when you signed the waiver, but these were kind of the exact same things that were presented to me, but, again, specifically I would want it would definitely, for me, it would, the percentage-wise, because if it's a small percent, then, you can at least analyze the risk. Mm-hmm. Now, if it's a high percentage, you still may analyze the risk and you still may take it depending on your current, like everybody else, your current situation.
Okay, thanks a lot. Brian.
I would echo John's approach on that, but I would also add that we're not taking this medication to get rid of a sinus infection for 2 weeks. We're taking this indefinitely. So it's a little bit different situation than just looking at, because every medication that we take says those on the label.
Good point, John. Or Brian, thank you. Okay, back there.
I would ask if there was data on the other comorbid factors from the study. What kinds of improvements were there for patients, or lack of improvement in other comorbid factors with the disease?
Okay, thank you. And we'll go to Caleb, and then we'll go to the web.
Yeah, just to echo what John was saying a minute ago, what is the statistical significance of defining rare? And is it more rare that I'm going to have better luck getting struck by lightning than catching cancer from this? Mm-hmm. Or do I have better luck catching cancer than getting struck by lightning? Mm-hmm. And in which case, too, building off of what Brian mentioned a minute ago, is what about the longitudinal effects? It may be statistically small that I might get cancer now, but what about 20 years from now? And I know that there's really no way to really test and validate that at this moment, but what are the comparisons between that and what could that mean?
Right. Okay, let's see what we're getting on the web for that.
Okay, so a few people said they'd sign up right away. Others said no right away, saying that there were too many side effects. But others said they'd want to know more information on its safety, how frequently these side effects occurred. One person said when contrasting these side effects with the treatments they're currently on, the side effects that are mentioned here are worse, so they wouldn't do it. And then they wanted to know how many people signed up for the study.
Okay, thanks. We're not going to be able to address, okay, Pancia, hold on. One more.
Thank you. I would actually ask, because all of us, we have different locations with psoriasis, and it says here 75% clearance of skin lesions. Mm-hmm. Now, I would ask, specifically where these skin lesions were and how well they cleared up on the different spots on our bodies.
Okay.
So that
Thank
would be
you.
my
Good
question.
Thank you for that. This is something that I'll put out, if you can address this in your docket comments and put some thought into this. We can't give you much information. It's a scenario question. So we know that there are more questions. So if you just, like a Jeopardy game, give it to us in the form of a question about what you'd want to know more about. That's really informative as we think more broadly about what needs to be communicated about these products. We have someone on the phone, so I'm just going to ask the phone to hold off 1 second. Let's go to the next polling question. I think is this the last polling question? This might be the last. I'm going to read through this polling question, and once we get that finished, we'll go to the phone for the phone caller. So we set up this to be able to ask this type of question, thinking of there are so many factors that go into these decisions. We've picked a few, however many H is, of things that we would like feedback on. So of these factors, knowing that there are many other factors, which two would you rank as most important to your decisions about using treatments to help reduce or control the spread of your psoriasis? So A, how the medication is administered. We heard some of that today. B, the frequency and length of the treatment. C, your access to treatment, and here we're getting into the insurance and the cost issues that have been mentioned several times today. D, whether the drug showed effectiveness for you on the specific benefit or benefits that are most meaningful to you. So is it addressing what you want it to be addressing? Even if it's addressing something else, is it addressing that specific benefit for you and how it did so? E, the common side effects of the treatment, such as risk of infection, fatigue, etc. F, the possibility of rare but serious side effects, such as blood disorders or certain cancers. G, your previous response to a similar treatment. And H, whether there are still other treatment options in your arsenal that you can try. Or conversely, whether this is, whether you're running out of options, in other words. These are the hardest questions last. Okay. So it looks like whether the drug showed effectiveness for the specific benefits that are most meaningful to you had the most frequent number of responses. Of course, acknowledging almost half of you in the room here acknowledge the importance. It's one of the top two of the access issues for you, followed by the possibility of rare but serious side effects. I'm going to make a guess. E, the common side effects, was not as frequently mentioned. One could interpret that being that you're willing to tolerate some nuisance side effects for the benefit. Okay, so let's go to the phone line if we can. Oh wait, I have to say something. Operator, I really have to say this. Operator, can we have our caller, please?
And Melissa, your line is open.
Hello.
I had comments about some of the side effects.
Okay.
I was once covered at 97%,
Mm-hmm.
and I went into a drug trial which helped tremendously. The problem is I am on state aid, and then I lost that ability to have that drug after the trial was over. I'm now back to 90% coverage.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
My comment is, you know, you guys were mentioning if you could get a drug that would be available by a trial, what do you do afterwards?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's a very, and can we have your name, please?
I'm Melissa.
Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. You've raised a point that has been, I think, underlying in several comments that we've heard. And I think John wants to follow up on that comment.
Yes, I had that experience when I was on the clinical trials for Humira. It got approved by the FDA. Basically, when it got approved by the FDA, the trial was over. And I had, you know, so what do I do? And so I was on a group plan at my employer's insurance. I called them. You know, I said it had been approved. I wanted to continue on it. They denied me coverage. First phone call was from a dermatologist who is world-renowned, and I respected very much, and I told him my situation. My next phone call was the National Psoriasis Foundation, and they said, you let us handle it. We will help you. And so, but the first call was what did it. My dermatologist wrote the insurance company a letter. I never saw the letter. I don't know what it said, but it was like within 30 days, I got a notification that I had been approved.
Okay. Thank you, John.
So.
We won't be able to get into the topic. We welcome docket comments on this. Okay, 1 second. Okay, one more. So as we're making our way to that commenter over there, let me ask, just for a show of hands, how many of you have faced the frustration that Melissa voiced over the phone and that John first had before it got resolved? So how many of you have experienced that frustration, participated in a clinical trial, or somehow had access to a treatment and then was taken away from you, for lack of a better word? You can raise your hand. We'll just get a show of hands. Okay, one back there. Okay, and just a show of hands, was it resolved the way John's was for you? Show of hands. So still not resolved? One, you and back there? Resolved. Okay, so if you wanted to comment more on that, please do so in the docket. We have one comment back there.
Hi there. My name is Michael O'Brook. I'm from UC San Francisco with the Department of Dermatology, and we do a lot of the clinical trials that we're discussing here today, and we put through a lot of these biologic medications. So it's great to see all the support from all of you guys and really hear a lot of the heartfelt stories. And I want to thank FDA in general. I think this is a really important point to echo, in that when we do all these clinical trials and we've got all these phenomenal medications that ultimately come to market, a lot of our patients, as we're hearing and seeing, have a very difficult time getting those medications once they're out there. So, you know, we've got all these people fighting behind the scenes, fighting here on the front lines for that, and you've got a great medication that no one can really get access to once it's out on the market. We have a lot of patients that have to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps before they can get on something like Cosentyx or Stelara or anything in between. So I don't know how much pull FDA has in terms of that, but I know we were out over on Capitol Hill the other day fighting pretty hard to get that going. And I just want to echo that support for all you guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks. So we have my green alarm clock. It's just luck that it was green for St. Patrick's Day, but it keeps me on track. That's that's my biggest job, really, is to make sure that we stay on time. It's not the most glamorous job. But so it means we're going to have to wrap up our discussion. Before we do, any burning questions from from FDA. Patricia, yes, please.
In one of the earlier questions about treatments used, there was the category where people had given up. You know, there was like,
yes.
what were some of the reasons for that?
So not taking anything.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
for not taking any treatment.
Okay. Anyone who did that and want to quickly explain why you said that question, you're not taking anything.
Thank you so much for that question. So I am counterintuitively, as a medical provider, not currently on any treatment. And there's really a number of reasons for that. So one, I have topical fatigue. I have spent 30-some years using topicals, and I know when I stop them that I go back to where I was before. I have done phototherapy for a while. I simply, in my schedule, do not have time to make that treatment effective. And I'm also a woman of childbearing age. I currently have an infant that I'm breastfeeding. And I have, over the last 10 years, gone on and off of biologic treatments for that reason. And I don't have enough information, even now, to know what is safe. And that is the mom in me and not the scientist in me, because I know some of that information exists. And then when you come off of treatments, they become ineffective. And when you go back on them and they're not effective again, and women really face that problem with pregnancy. And then the final reason actually gets to this polling question as well, which are the common side effects. I have 5 young children at home, and I work with kids all day. When I was on biologic treatments, I was constantly mildly ill. And it just got to a point of, what am I balancing? And am I balancing the colds and the fevers? I luckily had no serious side effects. But the balance then went into the favor of dealing with my disease without treatment.
Thank you very much. Any other? Diane, did you?
Hi. I've been on a biologic for a long time, and it worked great. I had private insurance. This year, January 1st, because I'm retiring, I dropped the private insurance, and now I'm on Medicare. Medicare will not approve what I've taken or any of the other biologics that might work. Only some TNF blockers that don't work for me. And I can't afford to pay for the biologics that are out there, so I'm on nothing. And it's starting to come back.
Thanks, Ellen. And Ellen. Any other final? Yes, we have.
Just with regard to marketed products, if we could just get a show of hands on people who have had trouble getting access to marketed products because of insurance denial.
So FDA-approved products, right?
Correct, not clinical
okay.
trial.
Okay, a large show of hands. If you're on the web, you'd be seeing a large show of hands that's maybe in the order of 30. So, very good question. Thanks a lot, Kendall. Okay. We need to be able to move into the open public comment portion. So I will close out by expressing sincere gratitude for our panel members and for those of you in the audience participating and over the web participating today. Thank you so much for all of your insight, your wisdom, your experience. It's been very helpful and a very, I think, very effective dialogue today. Again, if you have more to say, please do so through the docket. We do read through those. And with that, I will close out the facilitated discussion portion, and we'll move into the open public comment with Pujita. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for coming today. We're now moving into the open public comment session. And for those of you who are not aware, the purpose of this session is to allow an opportunity for those who have not had a chance to speak on issues that are not related to our two main discussion topics. So please keep in mind that we are not responding to your comments, but they will be transcribed and part of the public record. Since we would like to be transparent in this process, we encourage you to note any financial interest that you may have related to your comments. If you do not have any such interest, you may state that for the record as well. So we've collected sign up before the meeting, and we have 15 people signed up and about 30 minutes for this session. So each person will give you about 2 minutes, and we ask that you stick to that 2-minute time frame. I'll be keeping track of time here, and once I see that you're approaching the 2-minute mark, I'll need to ask you to start wrapping up. So I'll run through the order of speakers, and then I apologize if I mispronounce your name. So the order is we'll have Dr. Kim Joller first, Carol Selby, Tammy Soretti, Melissa Lilu, Lara Winley, Sharon West, Ben Lakshan, Michelle Johnson, Brian Lafoy, Yasmin Kirkorian, Todd Bello, Alicia Bridges, Neolia Ferreira, and then Julie Cerrone. So first, may I have Kim Joller to the mic? Oh, we probably need a mic up there, sorry.
All right, so thank you for the opportunity to address you here today. My name is Kim Joller. I'm the Executive Vice President and heading up Research and Development for Leo Pharma. First of all, great thank you for the FDA for putting this meeting together in patient-focused drug development. But I think first and foremost, a big thank for all of you that have shared your history with us here today. Signs and symptoms of psoriasis, insights that I can guarantee you I've never come across in any of the books that I've been reading through my times in medical school. So thank you very much. Leo Pharma is a company fully dedicated to dermatology, and about 1/3 of our pipeline is within psoriasis. We were fortunate enough 4 years ago with the help of the National Psoriasis Foundation to enter into a meeting very similar to this. The feedback from the patients we met at that point in time was strikingly similar to many of the things that we've heard today, among other things that itch is one of the most bothersome symptoms of psoriasis. Having heard that and cheered ourselves and for being experts within psoriasis clinical trials that we have been running for more than 30 years, we went back to see how often we have actually captured itch in our clinical studies. Not so proud to say, not once. Now the interesting thing is, psoriasis comes from the Greek word psoria, meaning itch. So I think in the last 2,000 years we sort of missed out on something. Now the PASI score that we use, of course, addresses many of the challenges that you've also highlighted today, the redness, the scaliness, the flakiness of the disease, the extent of the psoriasis disease. But it does not capture itch. It does not capture the pain, the burning sensation, the fatigue. Having listened to what you say today, PASI score and improvement in that is only one thing of helping psoriasis. Maybe it's only the tip of the iceberg. And that's why I think this initiative is so important, to make sure that we capture some of the other important outcomes that we need to have in future trials to much better see if we make a real difference for people living with psoriasis. Are we basically providing more days of well-being? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Next, could I have Carol Selby?
Thank you. I have 4 points. The first point is I would like to ask that we please stop managing symptoms and start managing whatever the cause is, because we can talk about treatments and symptoms all day long. That's my first point. My second point, I would like to just throw out a few somewhat unrelated things that I have not heard mentioned that I have experienced. I have 58% oxygen efficiency with every breath I take, because after 43 years of methotrexate, I suffered a drug-induced respiratory failure last June. I was intubated for a week. They had to restart my heart twice. Number 2, in 1989, I also nearly died. I had histoplasmosis, which is usually a very mild condition. I had it so severely that I was hospitalized for 7 weeks. Number 3, I was for 4 years when I was young, 100% disabled with pustular psoriasis. I've not heard much about that. It's not nice. Next point, I have squamous cell carcinomas from all the phototherapy I have taken. I've had both PUVA and UVB. We have got to get to the cause and stop treating the symptoms. Next point, I would like to ask some attention on clinical trial processes. I have never been well enough to survive a washout period and participate in a clinical trial. And I suspect that's true of many in this room. And consequently, we simply don't experience the advertised benefits of these drugs. I read these statistics. I have I have failed Remicade while simultaneously taking methotrexate. I have failed Embrel while simultaneously taking methotrexate. I have failed Stelara while simultaneously taking methotrexate. Next week I go on to Cosentyx after a 6-month fight to get it. So that'll be number 4. We'll see how that goes. Finally, I am grateful for the Food and Drug Administration Safety and Information Act of 2012 that brings us all here today and that will bring the other 19 disease communities here to do a similar exercise. I cannot adequately express how grateful I am to the FDA for bringing me and everyone else, my new friends, here today. And I would just say that a lot of what we have collectively said seems to be, if I'm reading body language correctly, surprising. And I would really hope that going forward that we continue to have a voice as new therapies and God hopes a cure. As these things are researched, please, please, please ask us back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. Next, could I have Tammy Soretti?
I have microphonophobia, so I've had psoriasis for the last 20-some years. Until this past June, I was never clear. I went on Cosentyx in June, and now I'm 100% clear, which is amazing because in June I had no hair. My psoriasis got so bad that I had no hair. My inverse was so bad. I carried packs of underwear in my car, in my purse, because I was changing all the time. Because when you have, under your arms and all the girly bits, and every time you sit down, you start bleeding, and every time you stand up, you start seeping, and your hair is falling out in clumps, you need everything with you. Duct tape, masking tape, just a little bit of everything, my little goodie bag. When the psoriasis goes away, when it goes into a medical remission, which means on Cosentyx, so I could be 6 weeks from a relapse if I didn't have my medicine. The fear doesn't go away. I mean, it stays. This is, I still live this. This is my life. This could come back any time. My biggest fear in the world is that one day, that's all I'm going to be, is psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. There's going to be no me left. My family lives with this. My friends live with this. And I appreciate the fact that I got to sit here last night and today and talk to all of you people, and you guys get me. And I figured when I came here, if one person got me, then I would be thrilled. And I just want to thank all of you for getting me. And my hugs go out to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Next, could I have Melissa Lulu?
Hi, thank you so much. I think the panel did a great job of addressing many of the problems that we face every day, and so many of the topics resonated really deeply with me. I would like to make a point of clarification about one thing in particular, though. I think that we kind of glimpsed over the burden, the emotional burden specifically, in pediatric patients, and as a former pediatric patient, I would like to advocate for better treatments. Specifically to a child, psoriasis means something different, and it's something that should not be overlooked. Psoriasis means long sleeves, long pants, and scarves all year long. It means hiding. A clothing choice seems nearly innocuous, but it's not. It means feeling ashamed, and it means being shamed. It means thinking twice before moving or going out or getting up in the morning. And it means thinking twice before being yourself. And no child should have to think twice before learning to express themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Next, could I have Laura Winley or Wivley? Sorry. Winley. Okay.
That's my bad doctor's handwriting. So I appreciate having been able to make comments as a patient, and I'm standing up now to make comments as a treating physician. When I told people I was coming here today, I was flooded by other providers and researchers who wanted me to make comments on their behalf, and I think that's really important for everybody to know. But specifically, the Society for Pediatric Dermatology, the American Academy of Pediatrics section on dermatology, and the Pediatric Dermatology Research Alliance. What I want to do, though, is just briefly share my personal story because I think that it highlights all of the points that they wanted me to make. When I was diagnosed with psoriasis, severe psoriasis as a child over 32 years ago, my treatment options were topical therapies, which took hours a day, light therapies, which were very difficult on my family, and methotrexate, which had a lot of side effects. Over 30 years later, these are the exact same options that I can offer my patients. It is disheartening at best that is all that I have for them that is readily available. In addition, I think we all have the concerns that the pace of current approval of pediatric treatments, whether it's topical treatments or systemic treatments, that many of our patients will run out of therapies because they're going to have this disease for a long time. But I think that there's a lot of people out there that are doing research. It's not that we don't have research, we do. It just has not led through the whole process yet, and partially that's because treatment for pediatric psoriasis, it's still the numbers are smaller. The population of kids is just smaller, and we're not necessarily getting to the numbers, although as organizations we are certainly trying to provide as much of that data as possible to the FDA. As there are increasing treatment options in adults, these treatment options we've heard today, some of them are leading to 100% clearance, much above the standard of the PASI 75 that is currently used in most trials. And the side effect profiles really tend to be better in some of the treatments as well. But yet, I still am disheartened that I'm no closer to being able to offer these options to the children that I see in clinic. So I'm urging that there's a renewed focus on pediatric treatment options and to consider, I think, a few things that are unique to kids. So one is that it matters if it hurts, and it matters if needles are involved in the treatment. It matters if they miss school, whether it's for side effects or for their treatment options. And it particularly matters to my patients that they know all these treatments are out there, and yet I can't offer them to the patients and the families. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And Sarah wants to say something really quick.
So Sarah again, hearing the last two commenters brought to mind something a colleague had asked as a question during the lunch period, and I'm going to throw it out for the docket response, either the past two commenters and anyone else who's going to comment on this. The question was, how many of you in the room or people that you know or get other pediatric people who had pediatric conditions to write the docket, were you diagnosed or did your symptoms really manifest before the age of 12, before the age of 6, and in both of those cases, what was the, as an indicator of the severity, what was the percent body coverage? If you could answer those questions, that was one thing that a colleague, we'll leave it for the docket, but it's one thing that a colleague brought up. So thank you.
Okay, next could I have Sharon West? Sorry.
Hello. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I have psoriatic disease since I'm approximately 8 years old. I've had all types of psoriasis, different places on my body. And I have been through treatments, all of that we've discussed, including, I don't know if anyone's ever had Gwen's rays. Okay, so when I was first diagnosed as an 8-year-old child, it started in my scalp and my ears, and I used to get these rays that they said wouldn't go past the skin. And it helped, and I actually, I had very good care. But I will say that having psoriatic disease has impacted my life deeply in all different ways. One, for me, for career opportunities. It's a very unpredictable disease, and it's a painful disease. And one moment it may disappear for some, you don't even know what reason, and then it appears, and so you're never quite sure what's coming around, so you feel very out of control. And I'll just speed it up a bit, and I do have psoriatic arthritis. I was in the original Humira trial, and it put me in a remission for 5 years, and then when it stopped working, it was as if all the psoriasis that was all over my body landed in my right foot. And this has been, I went through Pulva, Soriatane, I've been on prednisone, you name it. And also I have psoriatic arthritis. It is very painful. After being on Stelara, Remicade, Symphony, and Enbro, which none of those worked. I'm finally on Cosentyx, and I'm feeling a bit relief. But I will say that if I had to just say one thing after a lifetime of this really painful, dreadful disease, is that we need to educate the public and those who make vast, great decisions for people with this terrible disease, is that it is a systemic disease, and that we need to get a little angry and demand respect for what we go through. No one should have to be talked down to. Other diseases, as diabetes and other very serious diseases, the community, the world needs to know that this is, first and foremost, a disease of serious impact on our lives. Thank you so much.
Next, could I have Ben Lokshan?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Ben Lokshan. I come actually wearing a few hats. As a dermatologist, as a clinical researcher, and as a member of the National Psoriasis Foundation. I'm on the board of directors. So I want to first talk about the emotional impact, and something that you guys have all talked about, and I want to thank everyone for coming, but this is a condition that not only affects your skin and joints, but affects you holistically as a person. From intimacy to your job, to making friends, to going to the pool. Everyone is touched differently, but everyone is touched by this disease. I'm going to focus most of my attention about what the National Psoriasis Foundation has done to really help all of us out here. So for the last 50 years, as you guys know, the National Psoriasis Foundation has been the patient advocacy organization for the U.S. psoriatic disease community. It's the largest charitable funder of psoriasis disease research worldwide, and it assists approximately 2.1 million people annually through educational programs and services. From the experiences you've heard today, you can understand why we're relentless in our mission to find a cure for psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis, to eliminate their devastating effects through research, advocacy, and education. And I think all of you guys who are tapped into the National Psoriasis Foundation have experienced this. When the FDA posted the notice on November 2014 inviting organizations to comment on the next round of patient-focused drug development meetings, you can understand why the NPF responded. We knew that it was very important for the FDA to have the opportunity to hear directly from patients like you guys about what this is like to live with psoriasis, what it's like on a daily basis, what you guys go through. Because many times when you're within the walls of the NIH or the FDA or these research institutions, you just see this disease process based on numbers, based on PASI scores, based on statistics. These are real people affecting every single part of what we do. Our goal as the NPF, as dermatologists, as clinical researchers, is not only to find new medications, but really to find medications that are tailored to individuals. And that might be based on genetics, that might be based on disease severity and symptoms. I'm hurrying up, I promise. I'll be done in about 20 to 30 minutes. I'll be done in that. About 15 years ago, when I was thinking about a specialty in dermatology to take up, I decided to focus on psoriasis because I thought we were right at the point where we were making huge strides. And I didn't realize that it was just the tip of the iceberg. When the first biologics came out, just about 20 years ago now, I thought this is going to change the world. And now, with the various medications that we have, I feel that we've got many tools to manage these patients appropriately. But as you can hear from everyone else around here, we're not curing everybody, and we're not meeting the needs of treating these diseases. So on behalf of the National Psoriasis Foundation and the 7.5 million people living with psoriatic disease, I want to thank everyone for the dialogue today. I look forward to submitting a written comment with the NPF to the docket detailing the NPF patient survey data and other resources we'll reference that speak to the topics discussed today, and look forward to hearing the voices of the patient report that will come out this fall. So I thank everyone today for coming out.
Thank you, Ben. So in the interest of time, could you all please stick to the 2-minute mark because we are running out of time, and I do want everyone to get a chance to speak. So next, could I have Michelle Johnson to the mic, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Johnson, and I work every day in a capacity under the federal regulatory for reliability for the electrical system of this country. And I consider that my service to all of you and to the country. And I want you to know that I'm able to do that because of biologic drugs. I have had psoriasis since I was 13, and I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis at 31, which I probably had from the time I was 17. And I'm up here in front of you today because I want to make a plea to you as a dermatologist that you are the front line defense to the people like me who don't understand that there may be an arthritic component, but it is not what is culturally known as osteoarthritis. Please let people know that stiffness, swelling, and unexplained pain are the symptoms that you have with psoriatic arthritis. Mine went unchecked for probably 15 years, and now I'm severely disabled because the vertebrae in my back have torsioned so badly it's in a corkscrew. I pretty much can't sit very long. Any kind of millibar drops when a cold front comes through will affect the static pressure on all of my joints and cause severe pain. And my employer does not understand that if they want me to fly up to DC in the morning and then come back that night, the pressure differentials between the plane, which feels great while you're in it, and getting off will wipe you out for the next 2 or 3 days. So please, if you're a dermatologist, let this be known. Teach your patients this is what they need to look out for. It should have never taken this long for me. Number 2, keep it up. FDA, I thank you for allowing us to come and voice our concerns and to listen to us. Researchers, I thank you for being here to also listen, because these kinds of things, being able to put this out there and understand that these issues are out there, and we as patients deal with this every day, we have a lot, I think, that we can teach each other, and I appreciate that. And number 3, patients, self-care. Please talk to your doctors. I know there's a lot of people who may be embarrassed to talk to them or they don't know what to ask. I know in the Facebook profiles and such, I get a lot of questions from other patients who ask me, how did this biologic work for you? And I can tell you how it worked for me, and I help you if you want the assistance to chat about it, to just give someone else who understands. And another one is just stress relief. A lot of indications that I had fibromyalgia, I had CFS, I had all these different things that once I found out and got on a good biologic for me, all went away, and that was all because of I was able to get on the right medication, get rid of whatever it was, unless it was just old psoriatic arthritic related, which probably was. And I just wanted to expound the virtues of meditation to you for stress relief. It really makes a huge difference. I have a hugely stressful job, stressful life, And I was able to finally put a lot of that aside, and because I was able to do that through meditation and through relaxation, a lot of these symptoms were able to abate.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, could I have Brian LaFoy?
Thank you for having us today and for listening to our stories, and hopefully you've gained a little bit of insight on what it's like to be a psoriasis patient. I'd like to address specifically today the importance of treatment options with manageable side effects. I've had severe plaque psoriasis for 25 years, and I suffered for a lot of those years because I refused to go on anything other than topical medications. And the reason I did is because I watched my father, when I was younger, go through his treatments at the time where he was given the state-of-the-art oral medications. And after taking that for a period of time, he lost his hair, lost part of his vision, lost his toenails, and he's about my size and lost about half his body weight. So he ended up not taking that any longer, which I think saved his life. So the years that I suffered and refused to go on anything else besides topicals, biologics were already out. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. And before that, I was misdiagnosed to the point where they performed exploratory surgery on my hand where it first developed. And all that did was basically create a new source of trauma for my psoriasis. I ended up diagnosing myself, went to my dermatologist, and he confirmed that. And that's when I finally made the decision to go on a biologic, which changed my life. So by doing that, it restored my quality of life for me. Although every day I still wonder what's the long-term effects of that. I have a 14-month-old daughter. I have a son on the way, and I pray every night that they don't have to go through what I've gone through, and that I don't have to deal with them having psoriasis as they grow older. I hope that if that does happen, though, there will be some treatments out there that are going to be manageable and don't have the side effects that we have in the treatments today. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next, could I have Yashmin Kirkorian?
To adjust the microphone. So my name is Yasmin Krikorian. I'm a pediatric dermatologist here in Washington, D.C. I'm lucky enough to take care of Xavier and his family. And it's been a real struggle, as you guys have heard, for a number of reasons. And the primary one, I think we've said, and it bears repeating, is that nothing is approved for children. So everything is a fight. We find it miraculous that we got Stelara approved. I still don't know how I did it, but basically it was maybe a strongly worded letter, maybe it was an act of God, but that shouldn't be the way that we get medications approved for children. So I think it's very important that we really start to include children in clinical trials and that we then eventually actually get approval so it's not a battle every time, because there aren't that many pediatric dermatologists and it shouldn't be that way. There aren't always going to be access to us and the children shouldn't have to suffer for that reason. Another major issue, I think, in treating children, and it's one I have a child that I imagine I would ask, is the side effects are even more important when you're thinking about it for your child, because you're making a decision on their behalf, not making it for yourself. And it's difficult when drugs are newly approved to really say, well, I don't know, we'll see maybe in 10 years if there's something comes up. That's challenging. And so Lara talked to this a little bit, but the Society for Pediatric Dermatology and the Pediatric Research Alliance are looking at creating registries, and I think are actively in the process of doing this so that we can look at such questions, and I think that's really important to support. So I really appreciate hearing from the patients. It renewed my commitment to medicine just to hear, this is why we do it, and we want to continue to help, and especially help our pediatric patients who have limited options at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Yashmin. Next, could I have Todd Bellow?
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone. What more can I say than what I heard today? So I don't want to be redundant because we've heard just about everything about psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. So what I want to say is how it affected me financially. And early on, when I was first diagnosed, it knocked me from my knees. And basically I went into debt about $50,000. So we since then paid that all back. So, but that's a huge, on a family of four, it's a huge toll to pay back. And when I was first diagnosed, there was no medications like biologics that we have today. basically I went to the Dead Sea to receive my treatment. I've been there twice. My mother laid out $10,000 for me, and I had to leave work for 4 weeks the first time and 5 weeks the second time. So it was a huge burden on our family. I was a fireman. I was a volunteer soccer coach. I had to give that all up. I was active in my community. I like to do things for helping people, and this is why I do what I do. I have a support group. I talk to a lot of people. I owe plenty of thanks and all my life to the National Psoriasis Foundation for what they do for us. They're the strong voice of this disease, and I want to see it continue. And I think I could speak for everyone in here that we thank you for listening to all our stories, and they are similar. And I find that when I listen to other people's stories, they're very similar to mine. So it's very, you know, they had me in tears. So the next time we have a meeting, please hand out Kleenex. Let's see. What more can I say? That's about it. I mean, thank you the National Psoriasis Foundation, and thank you all the pharmaceuticals. And one other thing, the FDA. I want to say thank you for expediting the process of getting the biologics to us, because when we hear it's a victory for everyone in this room when there's a new product on the market, because we are failing other medications and we can switch over to other, you know, the newer medication, which might not work. You know, like obviously I was on 4 biologics. I was on Otezla, and now I'm on Cosentex. That's about it.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Next, could I have Alicia Bridges? Okay, Alicia says we're okay. Nolia Ferreira?
Close enough. First, I wanted to say that I have guttate psoriasis, and a lot of the new biologics don't cater to guttate, and it's very frustrating. So that'd be a nice thing to see, more medication for that. Another thing is I have psoriatic arthritis and psoriasis, so it's hard to find something that works for both. So that'd be nice. And my final comment is thank you for having us, and I'm also amazed that so many people are here. We're living with this chronic condition. I hope that you know that it was hard for us to get on a plane for many hours, to sit here for many hours. So it's amazing, and I applaud all of you for being here. Thanks.
Thank you. And last, we have Julie Cerrone.
Hi, my name is Julie Cerrone. I'm a certified holistic health coach and an autoimmune warrior, as I have psoriatic arthritis. And I am a very outspoken patient advocate, but I have been pretty quiet today because I really have psoriatic arthritis, and psoriasis isn't my main issue of concern. And, you know, psoriasis is more than skin deep, and we really need to look at it from a psoriatic disease perspective and remember that it really affects so much more than the joints. But there is something that we have not even brought up at all that I think is really worth mentioning, that, you know, most, if not all, chronic conditions have a foundation in inflammation, an overactive immune system. Where does most of our immune system live? Our gut. 75 to 80% of our immune system is there. So I really urge the FDA to be very cognizant about the food that you're putting out into our mainstream USA, genetically modified foods, pesticides, what the fillers are that are in these medications. Are they invoking an immune response? I had the opportunity to work with a pharma company who created a topical for psoriasis, and I said, what are the other ingredients that are in your medication, and do they invoke an immune response? And the woman who has been creating this drug for the last 10 years looked at me and said, that is something that we have never thought of. And that just blew my mind. You know, we need to decrease inflammation, so these things need to be addressed. So I just would like to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So now I'd like to call Dr. Kendall Marcus to the stand for our closing. Before I do that, could I ask you all to pass your clickers to the 2 ends of the room, and then we'll have folks pick those up. Thank you. And lastly, Dr. Kendall Marcus.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today. I have to say this has been a
a really helpful experience for me, and I believe also for my colleagues. Normally, I'm pretty good at jotting down comments to speak on the fly. This is something I have to do on a regular basis. But I have to say I've just been riveted all day, and I really didn't even try and jot anything down until the last 5 minutes. So I'd just like to say I really admire everybody's the courage that it must have taken to come and speak openly here today and talk about things that have caused you a tremendous amount of frustration, anxiety, physical illness, and shame. And you strike me as just a remarkable group of individuals who are courageous, resilient, and resourceful. And I think that you've really put a face on the disease of psoriasis for us here at FDA, and not just a face, but you've really filled out what a life experience is when you have psoriasis. All of the ways that it impacts your life, the impacts of the disease on your health, the daily impact it has on your life, the grander impact it has on your life decisions in terms of choosing careers and having children, your ability to engage in social relationships, both intimate ones and just in navigating the social world of having friendships. You know, I think that these types of impacts can be lost on people who are regulating the products that are created to treat the disease when they themselves have not treated individuals with the disease. And I think you commented on the looks of surprise that you saw that perhaps is an indication to you that there's not been an appreciation of the disease impact here, and perhaps it would be worthwhile for all of you to understand a little bit about who we are and what we do. I'm curious how many people sitting in the room, you understand the importance of engaging with the FDA, but I'm not sure how clearly you understand who we are and what it is that we do. But I'm the director of the Division of Dermatology and Dental Products. We have about 36 employees, and that's just employees within our direct division. That doesn't include what we call our co-locates, who also work on regulation of drug development and post-marketing safety. So we have about 15 medical officers. We have about 7 toxicologists who work on what we call the non-clinical evaluations of drug products. We have a team of about 10 project managers. And we also work with clinical pharmacologists, we work with statisticians, and we work with scientists in our Office of Product Quality who ensure the safe manufacturing of all of these drugs. And when a product is first submitted to the FDA for regulation, it's assigned a team of a single medical officer team leader, a single toxicologist, a toxicologist team leader, etc. And so a team is formed that regulates the drug. So you can imagine it's a small team, and they have everybody has a portfolio of products, so they're not just reviewing a single product. They are reviewing and doing the work across an entire portfolio of dermatologic products. And our job is to ensure that drugs are, that the companies design studies that ensure the safety of participants who decide to enroll in these studies, and that studies are well designed to demonstrate efficacy, provide safety information, and answer other questions that are necessary to adequately inform patients and physicians how to use the drug when it is marketed, who it's indicated for, what potential side effects it may have, what potential drug interactions it may have. We don't direct research. We can't tell drug companies what targets they should go after. We can't direct drug companies to focus on a cure. We don't regulate that type of research. But what we can do is have an impact on trial designs. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about here is whether or not we still need placebo-controlled trials. And, you know, I've heard today from one person who participated in a clinical trial the experience of having to have a washout period and having to spend 12 weeks on a placebo. And I imagine that could be a significant barrier to psoriasis patients wanting to enroll in clinical trials. So I have to tell you, just hearing that type of feedback alone, you know, is very helpful for us as regulators in understanding the types of trial designs. At this point, in the treatment paradigm of psoriasis, when there are other treatments available, and an acknowledgement of the fact that people enrolling in clinical trials may already be taking therapies that are impacting their disease, even though not adequately, and the impact that that might have. So what we've heard from you today, I think, has already been helpful in that respect. So I feel like I'm rambling. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what role we have in drug development. I think it's been very helpful to hear particularly about the emotional impact that the disease has on people. And I think that that's also been an area that's really been overlooked in drug development and clinical trials, capturing the impact, the emotional impact that the disease has on patients and the impact that it's had on treatment. We've already heard from someone from industry that they too have heard that other symptoms have not necessarily been adequately captured or evaluated in clinical trials, those of burning, itching, and fatigue. I would have to say I think today is the first time I've really heard of fatigue as an important symptom that has a significant impact on patients with psoriasis, and that this is not necessarily addressed with successful treatment of the disease. I'd like to acknowledge the pediatric dermatologists in the audience and the pediatric patients who are also in the audience, as well as their parents. And I just want to say that I've heard you. It's certainly something that we've spent a lot of time talking about internally. It's not anything that I can go into in any depth as a regulator. But again, I would just like to say that we've heard you. So I think that, you know, I think that what you've done today really has already had an impact, as I've just said. You know, we've heard from a representative from the pharmaceutical industry. You've certainly informed the way I think about clinical trial designs moving forward. And I hope that you all walk away from today understanding that while nothing necessarily is going to happen tomorrow, change takes time, and product development takes time, but I think you've already done a tremendous service to all patients who have psoriasis by speaking out really and as the voice of all patients who have psoriasis. So thank you very much for coming today. We really appreciate everything that you've done and your willingness to speak to us. So thank you.